90% of women will go through a yeast infection during the course of their life. See these antibiotics? I always thought they were kind of a miracle. Nobody told me that taking all of those rounds of antibiotics when I was a little girl would have such a traumatic effect on my adult life. You see, at 29 years old, I had a baby. After that, my yeast infections accelerated dramatically. The saddest part was nobody could help me understand why my vaginal area was literally infested with candida and bad bacteria. That produced all kinds of symptoms. Things like smelly discharge, painful urination, sugar cravings and constant overeating, bloating, gas, constipation and diarrhea, and constantly feeling distracted by my symptoms, which, as you can imagine, affects every single part of my life. Not to mention how I also kept getting recurrent urinary tract infections, and every time I got a UTI, my doctor put me on powerful antibiotics. I wish I knew that my doctor's help was actually the cause of my candida overgrowth and yeast infection symptoms. Anyway, there I was, sitting there in my doctor's office for the 17th time in just 2 years, and over 60 times in the last 10 years, for my recurrent, painful, confidence-crushing, relationship-destroying yeast infections. These yeast infections robbed me of any joy in life, completely taking over my attention. I couldn't be intimate with my husband anymore. It was just too painful, and honestly, too embarrassing. Plus, when we were intimate, I had to tell my husband Mark what I could and couldn't do, which was beyond frustrating for both of us. So as I'm sitting there in my doctor's office, I asked him, "Why am I here? What's causing these yeast infections? One after the other. Why is everything I'm doing to treat my yeast infections not working?" That's when I realized he doesn't know, but he wouldn't admit it. I mean, how could he? He was a doctor. Yet when I brought up candida, he had absolutely no clue why the yeast overgrows. All he said was, "I understand your frustration, but trust me, Sarah. Take this round of fluconazole, and you should see your symptoms fade away within the next few weeks." Listening to those words again was like hearing a broken record player. While my doctor seemed confident in fluconazole, his lack of knowledge about why the candida became so rampant and what I should be doing to treat the actual core of the problem bothered me a lot. Am I the only one going through this? Why does my doctor insist on giving me the same ineffective solutions? In my despair, I scoured the internet looking on different forums until I discovered, wait, I'm not alone. Hundreds, if not thousands of women just like me were in the exact same boat, prescribed endless rounds of antibiotics, fluconazole, and basic OTC treatments, only to be left worse than before. I felt some sort of relief when I read about numerous stories about their declining marriages, less sleep, fatigue, overeating, constant anxiety, and massive emotional ups and downs. I realized women all over the world are suffering from the same kind of recurrent yeast infection as I was. This totally blew my mind, because when so many women have the same problem, there's got to be a universal reason why. As I took it upon myself to sort of be my own doctor, I put on my research cap and got to work. I knew if anyone was going to help me figure this out, it was going to be me. It paid off, too. I discovered the 3 main reasons why women just like me were trapped by candida overgrowth. So let me quickly tell you what these 3 things are. I'll also reveal what I found that's clinically shown to directly address the core cause of recurrent yeast infections and the exhausting list of the symptoms that follow. Number 1, antibiotics, which I've already mentioned, but the why behind what they do is eye-opening. 2, something called dysbiosis, which is when we have more bad bacteria than good. 3, our mom's gut health. Yeah, your gut health is where yeast infections begin, and we get our gut health directly from our mothers. Okay, now let's take a quick deep dive into all 3 things, and then I'll talk about where this information led me and how I naturally manage my own recurrent yeast infections. Number 1 is antibiotics. It turns out these modern-day miracles are like dropping an atomic bomb on your gut's fragile ecosystem of good and bad bacteria. Antibiotics wipe out all of your bacteria. The problem is, bad bacteria, and especially candida, move back in way faster than your good bacteria, which you need to get from your diet and supplementation. Here's the weird thing about these bad bacteria and candida. They can actually talk to your brain and command what to eat. In fact, the gut is also known as the second brain, and many medical experts consider the second brain more powerful in controlling our health than what we typically think of as our brain, because it's where we manufacture serotonin, our body's main happy chemical, dopamine, our natural pleasure and reward response, GABA, a neurotransmitter that regulates our ability to fall asleep. From your second brain, these bad bacteria and candida can even manipulate your hunger-fullness hormones, so you never get the signal to stop eating. And they do this to get their fuel, allowing them to rapidly replicate and continue taking over control of your body. The number one food they're interested in is sugar. For candida, sugar is like steroids. So if you're wondering why you're always craving sugary foods and carbs, now you know. It's not actually you craving these sugary foods. It's them telling you to eat these foods. Not very fair, is it? And that leads us to the second reason for your yeast infections. Dysbiosis. This is when you've taken multiple rounds of antibiotics and the bad bacteria overwhelm the good. Even as a little girl, like me, I wish my doctor knew that treating my recurrent UTIs could trap me in a yeast-infested body for my adult life. I'm even angry thinking about it, because my dysbiosis just kept getting worse, triggering more and more long-lasting, painful recurrent yeast infections. Now here's what really got under my skin. I actually gave my husband yeast infection symptoms. Yeah, one morning he yelled for me when I was in the shower, "Sarah, you need to come here right now." I ran into the bathroom to find him examining himself. There were red bumps all over his downstairs. "What is this?" he embarrassingly asked me. "Oh gosh, honey, unless there's something you're not telling me, I think I might have given you my yeast infection." As he clenched his fists, I could see the anger flowing through his body and appear on his face. "What? Did you cheat on me?" "I swear I didn't cheat on you. I didn't even know it was possible for guys to get yeast infections." I, of course, didn't know the answer, and to say I was embarrassed is an understatement. So I researched and found out all kinds of new information. Like 70% of women get their yeast infections triggered by their man. But yeah, I also found that men can absolutely get our symptoms too. Even worse, your man might not have symptoms, but you keep passing the infection back and forth, further trapping you both in candida-infested bodies. I know, sounds horrible, right? But there's one more major reason for your recurrent yeast infections. Your mom. You see, you get your microbiome, or the balance of good and bad bacteria and candida, from your mother. This is, in essence, your starting point for health, as true well-being begins and ends in the gut's fragile microbiome. That's definitely not placing blame on your mom or myself. It's just how Mother Nature works. So if your mom had her own bouts of antibiotic use, it could have made you start out in life already swimming upstream to feel healthy, youthful, strong, and vibrant. That's not your fault. But now that you know so much more about where your yeast infections come from, question is, how did I overcome my own personal journey with this recurrent life stopper so that you can too? Well, I discovered one more powerful clue that led me to discovering a natural way to help potentially neutralize and eliminate candida. See this weird-looking sludge? This stuff is called biofilm. It's like a shield that protects candida from being touched by the typical yeast infection treatments. Now, on a side note, this biofilm is behind one of the scariest things human beings can experience: antibiotic resistance. Yep, the overuse of antibiotics is leading to people becoming resistant to antibiotic treatments. It's so bad that the World Health Organization predicts that over 10 million people will die every single year due to complications with basic infections. Can you believe that? So getting to the core of your recurrent yeast infections can have even further reaching implications than you ever likely thought, which is why I'm sharing my story. Plus, don't forget, the health of your microbiome is what produces a healthy immune system and immune response. Knowing this, I felt a sense of urgency to find some answers. I knew I had to figure out a way to help manage the biofilm surrounding my candida, so I had a chance of escaping this ongoing nightmare. I researched all kinds of natural ways to treat yeast infections. I found stuff like garlic, insulin, L-glutamine, probiotics, and more, but nothing was really helping me. I still got a yeast infection when I overate sugar, or even dealt with a little too much stress. I knew that if I didn't treat the core cause, I'd just keep getting them. So I started researching what other people do to help with bacterial problems, because they have biofilm surrounding them too. I found this interesting article about how NASA uses silver to disinfect their instruments. The light bulb went off. Can't people ingest silver? I thought I remembered hearing about that. I found all of these articles about colloidal silver. Every single one of these articles claimed that colloidal silver was toxic for people to take, even though there's plenty of science showing how it's effective. So I started digging deeper, and I heard an advertisement for a company called Freedom Health Alliance. They had a product, something called Next Generation Active Silver Solution, which is an advanced form of silver. Many of my friends had discussed silver over the years, but it wasn't something I'd paid much attention to. This form of silver not only has been shown to be safe for human consumption, but it apparently doesn't metabolize in the body at all. On top of that, it's also alkaline, compared to the older silvers that are acidic, toxic, and used to turn people blue. It got even more exciting too, because just one of these silver ions is shown to combat the biofilm surrounding bad bacteria and candida cells, even the antibiotic-resistant ones, so they're exposed. Then, the alkaline, structured silver ions are thought to essentially pop the cells and drain them of their life force. So of course, I had to try it. And seeing as there's a 60-day money-back guarantee, what did I really have to lose? I was willing to take a chance on it. I'm so glad I did, too. And now, for the first time in my adult life, I felt free from the prison of these recurring infections. I couldn't believe my eyes. The best part is, it's been about 6 months now, and I feel more youthful, energized, clear, attractive, and confident than I have in forever. I must say that I'm also sleeping better than I have since my younger years. I was so impressed by my personal experience, I sent in my story to Freedom Health Alliance. And when they heard my story and everything I went through, they asked if I could share it with you today. Their goal is to help as many people as they can with the difficult health challenges they face by taking a natural approach to health. The best part is, my marriage is stronger than it's ever been. Mark, my partner, has had no more yeast infection symptoms, so we're able to be intimate again without worrying about candida or yeast. It's allowed us to rekindle our love and share deep appreciation for each other. For that alone, I honestly couldn't be more grateful. So my question to you is, wouldn't you love to address the core of your yeast infections and say goodbye to the discouraging symptoms that control your life, like I did, as well as thousands of other people? When I started taking Freedom's Active Silver Solution, I dosed up and went all in. The good people at Freedom Health Alliance answered all of my questions about safety and efficacy. They advised me to drink half a bottle during the course of the first day. On the second day, I drank another half bottle. By the third day, I was down to the recommended dose of 2 tablespoons in the morning and night. This therapeutic dose was like sending thousands of Navy SEALs into my gut so they could help combat that nasty biofilm surrounding the bad guys. That's why I wholeheartedly recommend getting at least 3 bottles of Freedom's Active Silver Solution when you place your order today, to sort of give your gut a wash. Of course, I'm not a doctor or health professional. I'm just a girl in the world who finally told Candida who's boss. And remember, you have 60 days to try Freedom's Active Silver Solution for yourself. If you don't feel more in control over your yeast infections, have an easier time controlling your sugar cravings, diminish bloat and gas, and feel more energy than you have in years, Freedom Health Alliance will gladly refund your full purchase price. You truly have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Well, except yeast infections. Every bottle of Freedom's Active Silver Solution is made right here in the USA at an FDA-compliant facility. So just imagine, there are 2 roads ahead of you. One, the road to the left that takes you further in the direction you're going, when any little thing can trigger your next yeast infection. Or 2, you can address biofilm and dysbiosis at their core and potentially live a much freer life, the life you deserve. The choice is absolutely yours. I know what I chose, and I'm grateful I did. Again, I recommend getting at least 3 bottles so you can give your gut a therapeutic dose. On a side note, another thing that I found beneficial was to soak a tampon in the silver liquid. This was able to get the product directly in contact with the yeast and bacteria that was causing a lot. It's totally safe, and I noticed an amazing rapid difference. Just one thing I need to make sure I mention. You might experience something called die-off, or when candida is literally perishing inside of your gastrointestinal tract. When you take Freedom's Active Silver, just make sure and drink plenty of regular water. That'll likely help you get that stuff out of your system. Now, in my excitement from seeing no more symptoms, I've shared this with a number of friends that I knew were suffering as well. And just like me, they all have an amazing story to tell of how they also have been able to take control of this horrible condition. So please don't forget, the way you're currently feeling is silently felt by millions of women. So you're far from being alone in this. The only difference between you and me is I found something that works. Something that put an end to my embarrassing misery and gave me the relief I was seeking. So I finally changed my life, as well as many of my friends and family members. Now it's your turn. Take advantage of what I found. Oh, and one more thing. I promise, if you're in a relationship, make sure to get your partner on Freedom Silver too. It's time to reclaim your power and take control over the yeast cycle that gets passed back and forth between you. So keep that in mind when you order, and I'll see you on the other side.